Well, uh, better late than never, right? With over 1,000 monsters to choose from in D&D, it can be hard to know which ones to use, and even harder to know how to play them. What weapons do they favor? What tactics would they use? How do they interact with other types of monsters? These are all questions that can come up to DMs that are looking to make their combats more enticing for their players. It's certainly one that I struggled with. That's why I'm back today with another monster breakdown for D&D. Hello again everyone, I'm Bill from AltRoll, and today I'm going to dive into a brief history of a D&D creature, how that history was adapted into 5th edition, and how this lore can help game masters make their combat encounters better. So, whether you're here for the cool lore breakdown or for the combat tactics, I'm hoping to give you a lot more to chew on when it comes to the monsters we face in D&D. For episode 12, let's rattle up some timeless classics and look at skeletons. Skeletons are the structural framework that supports the body of most animals, including amphibians, birds, reptiles, fish, and mammals. When we think of skeletons, though, we tend to focus on the endoskeleton, which is the internal support system composed of mineralized tissue, also known as bone! Now, I am by no means an expert on the history of bones, but we're not just here to study a regular old skeleton. We're here to talk about animated skeletons. Common in fantasy, gothic, and horror fiction, animated skeletons have been everything from basic antagonists in adventure novels to the literal personification of death and one of the four horsemen of the apocalypse. Skeletons have been prevalent in Western culture since the Middle Ages, with early influences likely coming from the Valley of the Dry Bones in the Book of Ezekiel. Outside of Europe, figurines and images of skeletons doing routine things are common in Mexico's Day of the Dead celebration, where skulls symbolize life. Since the Middle Ages, skeletons have remained steadfast antagonists in books, films, and games.
Kill them all!
In D&D, skeletons first appeared in the 1974 original D&D 3-volume set, Monsters and Treasure. While the most common skeleton was that of humanoids, an undead skeleton could be made from any solid creature, including wolves, giants, minotaurs, and even dragons. In 5th edition, skeletons are described as undead corpses animated by necromantic magic or the presence of corrupting evil. Created from whatever form they used to have in life, skeletons are bound to the will of their creator, following their orders to the letter. If no creator or will is present to guide them, skeletons will mimic the actions of their past lives, such as a warhorse skeleton chomping on grass that it can't eat. Other than those base behaviors, an animated skeleton retains no connection to its past, although resurrecting a skeleton can banish the undead spirit that empowers it and restore its body and soul. While they lack the intellect they possessed in life, skeletons aren't always mindless drones. They can't communicate in any way except to nod, shake their heads, or point. But they do understand the languages they knew in life. They understand basic pathfinding and will approach their target from the easiest path available while avoiding traps and hazards. They can take instruction for basic tasks like using doors and ladders, as well as more advanced tasks like firing siege engines, forming a shield wall, or dumping boiling oil. More complex tasks require more complex instruction, however, and a skeleton may take their orders quite literally. Because of their literal interpretation of commands and unwavering obedience, skeletons tend to adapt poorly to changing circumstances. When skeletons encounter living creatures, the necromantic energy that drives them compels them to kill unless they are commanded by their masters to refrain from doing so. A skeleton requires no air, no food, no water, and no sleep, and they will fight with no mercy until they are destroyed, for skeletons possess little sense of self and even less sense of self-preservation. Now that we've examined their lore, let's pivot over to the skeleton's mechanics by looking at their stat block. This is what a skeleton's stat block looks like. Let's break it down section by section and look at what's listed here in detail. Starting at the top, we have their size, creature type, and alignment. Size in 5th edition defines the space a creature takes up in combat, with a medium creature taking up a 5 foot by 5 foot square or hex on a battle map. Using the 3.5 edition Dungeon Master's Guide, shown here, skeletons can be between 4 to 8 feet tall and weigh anywhere between 60 and 500 pounds, though they're probably going to be on the lighter side considering they no longer have any flesh or tissue on them. Their creature type is undead. Undead are once living creatures brought to a horrifying state of undeath through necromantic magic or some unholy curse, and includes creatures like vampires, zombies, ghouls, and specters. Alignment broadly describes a creature's general outlook on the world, and combines their moral beliefs with their attitudes towards society and order. The alignment of the skeleton is lawful evil, meaning they methodically take what they want within the limits of their loyalty to their master. Below that top bar are the rest of the skeleton's stats, which are essential for the mechanical play of the creature by the Dungeon Master. The skeleton has an armor class of 13, 2d8 plus 4 hit points, or 13 on average, and a movement speed of 30 feet. Looking at their ability scores, they have 10 strength, 14 dexterity, 15 constitution, 6 intelligence, 8 wisdom, and 5 charisma. With 10 being average for an ability score, the skeleton has high dexterity and constitution, average strength, and low intelligence, wisdom, and charisma. For their skills and proficiencies, the skeleton is vulnerable to bludgeoning damage, immune to poison damage, immune to exhaustion and the poisoned condition, have dark vision out to 60 feet, have a passive perception of 9, understand all the languages it knew in life but cannot speak, has a proficiency bonus of +2, has a challenge rating of 1/4, and awards 50 experience points when killed. For offensive actions, the skeleton typically wields a short sword and a short bow. The short sword has a +4 to hit, a reach of 5 feet, and deals 1d6 +2 piercing damage on a hit. The short bow has a +4 to hit, a range of 80 feet normally and 320 feet with disadvantage, and deals 1d6 +2 piercing damage on a hit. Lastly, we have their environment tags. When using digital resources, we can see that skeletons can typically be found in urban areas, such as graveyards and tombs. Now that we've gone through and sorted out their stat block, we can begin to relate the skeleton's lore and abilities to how we should be using them in combat encounters. Specifically, we're going to look at how they behave, how they would approach a combat situation, and how to get into the mind of a skeleton if you want to fight effectively as one. How do we do this? Well, we'll need to take the lore and stat blocks of the monster and compare that with how that information is intended, referencing tactics and interpretations from The Monsters Know What They're Doing by Keith Amon. Let's start by going through Amon's key assumptions one by one and relating them to the skeleton as we go. The first of Amon's assumptions is that most creatures want to survive, and if seriously wounded, will try to flee combat. Exceptions to this rule are fanatics or intelligent beings who believe they'll be hunted down and killed if they do flee. Skeletons are another exception to this rule, as they have no sense of self-preservation due to their undead nature. As such, a skeleton will not run from a fight unless instructed to do so by its master, fighting to the bitter end if needs be. Next up, let's look at how their alignment can impact their thinking. On the scale of good to evil, good creatures tend to be friendly to others, whereas evil creatures are hostile to others. On the scale of lawful to chaotic, lawful monsters may try to capture or non-lethally subdue others, whereas chaotic monsters would just kill them. Since skeletons are lawful evil, we know two things about them. First, while they are lawful, skeletons will choose to capture or kill based on whether they are ordered to do so. If no orders are given to take a creature alive, it will attempt to kill any living creature. Secondly, since skeletons are evil creatures, they're going to be outwardly hostile to other creatures. Continuing with their mindset, let's dive into some of their mental ability scores. Skeletons have an intelligence score of 6. With regards to intelligence scores of 7 or less, Amon states, "A creature with intelligence of 7 or less operates purely from instinct. That doesn't mean it uses its features ineffectively, only that it has one preferred modus operandi and isn't going to be able to adjust if it stops working." So, just as in their lore, skeletons are only going to be able to do what they're directed to do, and if things change, they're going to be unable to adapt to those changes. Skeletons also have a wisdom score of 8. With regards to wisdom scores between 8 and 11, Amon states, "A creature with wisdom of 8 to 11 knows when to flee but is indiscriminate in choosing targets." As we stated earlier, skeletons are not going to flee combat unless they are ordered to, but the main thing to focus on here is that they're just going to target the first available enemy and then start attacking. Taking this, coupled with their inability to adapt to a changing battlefield, means that skeletons are going to require direction to fight effectively. Otherwise, they'll just attack the first thing they see and keep attacking until it or they are destroyed. Now that we've set up how they think, let's look at the skeleton's physical abilities that influence how they fight. Thinking like Amon, we can assume the following. Creatures with low strength, whatever their dexterity and constitution, will always try to compensate with numbers. If their numbers are reduced enough, they'll scatter. Creatures with high dexterity will prefer to attack with ranged weapons, and if it's intelligent, the creature may lay traps as well. Creatures with high constitution typically have a hit point advantage over their enemies, and because of that, they're less likely to hide in combat since they can afford to soak up a couple attacks before going down. To recap our earlier stat block examination, skeletons have average strength, high dexterity, and high constitution. Comparing this to the assumptions we put forward, skeletons are scrappy monsters that will attack in groups mixed with ranged and melee weapons. They won't scatter due to their undead nature, and they're not smart enough to lay traps, but they are going to continue fighting with no sense of self-preservation until the threat is eliminated. The last major premise from Amon is that in D&D 5th edition, unless otherwise specified, any creature gets their full movement, one action, one bonus action, and one reaction, just like any player character does. Amon posits that any creature that exists within the game world will have evolved in accordance with this rule, and it will seek to obtain the best possible result from the action economy of the game. This means they will combine whatever movement, actions, bonus actions, and reactions are available to it for the best possible outcome. Unfortunately for the skeleton, they don't really have any abilities that they can leverage to maximize their action economy. Most skeleton combat is going to come down to move to engagement range, attack, and then end your turn. Now, it is possible that some skeletons might utilize different tactics based on their past life, such as archer skeletons seeking cover after firing, or melee skeletons using the dodge action. But overall, skeletons are going to rely on having greater numbers to balance the action economy in their favor. So, with all of these assumptions laid out and applied to skeletons, what do we now know about how to use them in combat? Firstly, skeletons fight in groups when commanded to by their master, and when no master is present or available, they will be outwardly hostile to any living being. The necromantic energy that animates them forces skeletons to want to destroy life, and potential victims have no chance of persuading a skeleton to show mercy. Secondly, with little to no problem-solving abilities of their own, skeletons follow the orders given to them to the letter. While they can complete tasks with basic logic and fight with various weaponry, if not given direction, they will revert back to whatever they used to do when they were alive. Third, in combat, skeletons will use the weapons and armor they were most comfortable with in life. In practice, this means that skeletons will use a mixture of ranged and melee combatants, each of which is able to use instinctive tactics like cover and dodging. Fourth, a skeleton will never flee combat, choosing to fight until they or their target are fully destroyed. Due to their nature as undead monsters, skeletons have no self-preservation and will complete their tasks as ordered regardless of their own vulnerabilities. Fifth, if skeletons win a combat encounter, they're likely to kill the creatures that they fought. However, if they are ordered to take the captives alive by their master, they will follow those orders with no hesitation. And with that, we come to the end of our video on skeletons. The perfect minion for an evil necromancer who wants to take over the land of the living, skeletons are the basic fodder that make up the majority of an undead army. What I really want to know is, what do you think of the skeleton? Do you like using these straightforward undead monsters? Or do you think they're a bit basic when it comes to enemy variety? You can let me know in the comments down below, or you can join the AltRoll Discord using our link in the description to discuss it there. While on the server, you can pop into our courses that teach the basics of D&D, and if you like what we do, supporting us on our Ko-fi goes a long way in helping us keep AltRoll going. However, that's all I had for you today. I hope those of you in the US had an amazing Thanksgiving. Thank you all for watching. Make sure to get some great deals on D&D merchandise over Black Friday weekend, and of course, make sure to have a great rest of your day. I'll see all of you next time.